The story begins with a vast, dark expanse of space. An alien ship, sleek and shining with advanced technology, slowly glides toward Earth. The ship is part of the Teliari, a peaceful species that has traveled across the stars, seeking to form diplomatic alliances with other planets. The Teliari have heard about Earth and its humans, but they know little about them. In their minds, Earth is just another primitive world, filled with weak, herbivorous beings who would be easy to negotiate with. Aboard the alien ship, Ambassador Silther and his delegation discuss their mission. They're excited to meet the humans, but there's an underlying unease. Earth is a relatively unknown planet, and while the Teliari are advanced, they know that surprises can happen when meeting other species. The Teliari are peace-loving, focused on science, nature, and harmony. They can't imagine that humanity, with all its problems and history of violence, could pose any real threat. As the alien ship enters Earth's atmosphere, it begins to cloak, hiding in the sky above a busy human space station. Captain Daniel Reed, the leader of the human delegation, stands at the command center. He looks up at the screen showing the approaching alien vessel, his face serious but calm. He is aware of the stakes. This meeting could shape the future of humanity's place in the galaxy. The humans have been preparing for this moment, studying the Teliari, learning their customs, and ensuring their technology is ready to make a good first impression. The Teliari ship decloaks, and their advanced, glowing craft appears in the sky, sending a ripple of excitement across Earth's space station. Humans and aliens alike observe each other from a distance, cautiously sizing each other up. The Teliari ship lands softly, and the alien delegation disembarks. They are tall, thin beings, their skin a soft green hue, their eyes large and dark, giving them an almost otherworldly presence. They step off their ship, their movements graceful but uncertain. Ambassador Silther approaches Captain Reed with a polite smile, his long fingers extended in a peaceful gesture. Captain Reed greets them with an open hand, trying to convey warmth and trust. The tension is palpable, but they both know that this moment could change everything. Humans and Teliari have never met before, and there is so much to prove on both sides. A grand feast is prepared for the diplomats in a large, open hall. The humans have gone to great lengths to ensure the meal is a show of their culture, peaceful, open, and inclusive. Dishes are served, filled with fruits, vegetables, and other plant-based foods, while a few human chefs prepare something different on the side. But the real surprise happens when one of the human dignitaries, with a smile, offers the Teliari a traditional human dish, a large, roasted animal carcass. The meat, sizzling on the table, fills the air with a mouth-watering aroma. The moment is supposed to be one of goodwill, a gesture of trust, but the reaction from the Teliari is instant and shocking. Ambassador Silther freezes. His eyes widen in horror, and the smile on his face falters. The other Teliari diplomats look around nervously, their discomfort visible as they see the humans digging into the meat. For the Teliari, who have never consumed anything other than plants, the sight is utterly repulsive. They exchange uneasy glances, unsure how to respond. The tension in the room grows thick. The humans, unaware of the alien species' horror, continue to eat their meal, engaging in light conversation. But the Teliari feel trapped, unable to understand how a species they've always considered primitive could have evolved to such a point. How could a race of beings who consume meat, who hunt animals for food, be capable of the peaceful coexistence they hoped for? Ambassador Silther clears his throat, trying to maintain composure. His voice shakes as he asks, "This is how you live?" His question hangs in the air, heavy with disbelief. The humans look at him, confused at first, not realizing that they've just broken the unspoken rule of intergalactic diplomacy: don't offend the peace-loving aliens with your savage ways. Captain Reed, trying to ease the situation, explains that while humans eat meat, they also have a deep respect for life and the natural world. Humans have evolved as omnivores, using both plants and animals to survive, but they are not mindless predators. They've developed laws and ethics around hunting, ensuring that only what is necessary is taken. The humans even protect endangered species and work to preserve biodiversity. But the Teliari are too shocked to listen. Their minds race. How could a species that hunts for food, that eats other living creatures, be capable of peace? The idea is inconceivable to them. As the humans continue to eat and talk, the Teliari retreat inward, feeling more and more uneasy. They begin to question whether humanity's peaceful overtures are simply a facade. Could these humans, who hunt and consume animals, be hiding something far more dangerous? What if the humans have the power to destroy worlds, just as they have destroyed the lives of animals? The room becomes quieter, the tension rising with each passing second. The first contact that was supposed to be a step toward peace now feels more like a confrontation. The Teliari are afraid, and they realize they've stepped into something far bigger than they could ever imagine. The room is filled with an uncomfortable silence. The Teliari delegation stands frozen, their eyes wide with shock as they watch the humans feast on the roasted meat. Ambassador Silther, still in disbelief, glances nervously at his fellow diplomats, who are clearly disturbed. Their minds race, trying to comprehend the scene unfolding before them. The humans, however, remain unaware of the deep unease they've caused. Captain Daniel Reed, still focused on the conversation, continues to explain human culture. He talks about the importance of balance in nature, the conservation efforts on Earth, and how humans have learned to live with the world, rather than exploiting it. But his words fall flat in the tense atmosphere. Finally, Ambassador Silther speaks, his voice trembling. "I do not understand. How can your species consume life?" His question hangs in the air, filled with disbelief. His tone is softer now, almost pleading for an explanation. "We have seen countless species across the galaxy, and we've never encountered one like yours. One that feeds on other creatures." The humans look at him in confusion. They had not expected such a strong reaction. Captain Reed tries to explain, his voice calm but firm, "We are omnivores. It is a natural part of our survival. Our ancestors hunted for food, but we have always respected the balance of nature." But the Teliari are not convinced. For them, consuming animal flesh is not just an ethical dilemma, it's a terrifying idea. Ambassador Silther steps back, his mind racing. "But, this goes against everything we've learned. All the civilizations we've encountered, none of them have behaved this way. None have been predators." The rest of the Teliari delegation begins to murmur among themselves, their voices low and urgent. They are clearly disturbed, unsure whether to continue the meeting or abandon it entirely. There's a growing sense of fear in the air, and it's only getting worse as the seconds tick by. The peaceful species that came to Earth with the hope of forging a new alliance now finds themselves questioning whether the humans can truly be trusted. Captain Reed senses the shift in mood. He notices the Teliari's unease, their eyes darting around the room as if looking for a way out. He realizes that something is terribly wrong. He glances at Lieutenant Bonner, his trusted second-in-command, who stands nearby, his face also growing pale. Bonner, always sharp and ready for anything, seems to recognize the shift in atmosphere as well. Bonner leans in close to Reed and whispers urgently, "We need to fix this, or this whole thing could go south fast." They're not just shocked, they're terrified. Reed nods, his brow furrowing in concern. He looks at the Teliari once more, trying to gauge their reactions. "Listen, Ambassador, I know this is a shock. But humans have always adapted. We've learned to control our instincts. We don't live like wild animals anymore." He pauses, hoping his words will soothe the tension. "We protect the weak, we nurture our environment, and we're capable of great kindness." But Silther's expression doesn't soften. He remains cold, distant. "We believed you were a species that valued peace, that respected all life. Yet, you consume it." He shakes his head slowly, as though processing something too terrible to fully understand. This is not the way of enlightened beings. The room falls silent again, the weight of the conversation hanging heavy between them. For the first time, Captain Reed realizes the full extent of the Teliari's fear. It's not just the act of eating meat, it's the fact that the humans are capable of violence. They've seen it before, in the animal kingdom, and now they wonder if humanity is hiding a dark secret. Could this seemingly peaceful species, so skilled in technology and war, be capable of unimaginable cruelty? Suddenly, Lieutenant Bonner speaks up, his voice sharp and clear. "Ambassador, we are not what you think. Yes, we eat meat. But we have evolved beyond blind violence. Our technology, our society, it is built on cooperation and peace. We fight only when necessary, and we fight to protect those we love." There's a moment of hesitation as the Teliari consider Bonner's words. The tension in the room is almost unbearable, but it's clear that the humans are not backing down. They are trying to prove that they are not the mindless predators the Teliari fear. They want to show the aliens that, despite their carnivorous diet, they are capable of great things. But the Teliari aren't convinced. Ambassador Silther's eyes narrow, and he takes a step back. "I cannot simply accept your words. If you are truly as peaceful as you claim, then why do you still hunt for food? Why do you live as predators?" Captain Reed clenches his jaw, his mind racing for a solution. He knows that this encounter could go from bad to worse if they don't find common ground. "Ambassador, we don't want to fight. We don't want to hurt anyone. But if we are going to work together, we need to understand each other. The truth is, humans have always been survivors. Our history, our culture, it's shaped who we are. We've learned to balance nature, to live in harmony with it, despite our need for meat." As the humans speak, the Teliari begin to murmur among themselves once more. Their fear is palpable, and they begin to question whether they should stay any longer. Is humanity truly ready for the galaxy's advanced societies, or is Earth still a dangerous, primitive world filled with threats they don't understand? And then, just as the conversation seems on the verge of collapse, a loud thud shakes the room. The walls tremble as if something enormous is approaching. The Teliari, already on edge, jump in fright. Captain Reed turns sharply to see the walls vibrating from the outside. Something's happening. Something much bigger than they can control. The peaceful first contact is slipping away, and a dark new reality is beginning to take shape. The humans and Teliari exchange alarmed glances, and the air grows thick with uncertainty. What comes next could change everything. The room falls into an eerie silence as the tremors from the outside continue. The walls shake with a low hum, like the sound of something massive moving just beyond the compound. The Teliari diplomats exchange uneasy glances, their faces pale with fear. The atmosphere is thick with tension, and it's clear that the situation is rapidly spiraling out of control. Captain Daniel Reed looks around the room, his mind racing, trying to figure out what's happening and what it means for the future of Earth's relationship with the Teliari. Ambassador Silther, still visibly shaken from the earlier shock of learning about humanity's carnivorous nature, steps back cautiously. "What is this? What's happening?" he asks, his voice trembling. His hands grip the edges of the table in front of him as if holding onto it will steady his racing thoughts. Reed straightens up, his eyes narrowing. "I don't know, but whatever it is, we need to stay calm and figure this out. There's something out there, and it doesn't feel right." His tone is firm, but there's an underlying urgency. He knows that if they don't act fast, this peaceful meeting could turn into a full-blown disaster. Lieutenant Bonner, standing nearby, scans the room, his hand on the sidearm strapped to his waist. His training kicks in, and his instincts are on high alert. This isn't just an earthquake or some natural phenomenon. I've never felt anything like this before. It's coming from outside the base, right above us. He exchanges a glance with Reed, the unease in his eyes undeniable. The Teliari look even more terrified now. One of them, a younger diplomat, whispers in their language, his voice barely audible, "It's the humans. They've called upon some weapon we don't understand. This is a trap." The words are heavy with accusation, and the others nod slowly, their fear quickly turning to suspicion. Captain Reed raises a hand, trying to calm the room. "That's not true. We don't have any weapon," but before he can finish, the walls of the room vibrate again, even more violently this time. The lights flicker and then go out entirely, plunging them into darkness. The sound of metal scraping against metal fills the room, followed by an unsettling mechanical whirring. Panic sets in among the Teliari. They jump to their feet, eyes wide with alarm. "What is that?" one of them demands, their voice shaking. Another diplomat stumbles backward, her hands raised as if to shield herself from some unseen force. "Is it a weapon? Are you attacking us?" Reed's heart pounds in his chest. He's never seen the Teliari so frightened, and it's becoming clear that their fear isn't just about the human diet anymore. Something else is happening, something far more dangerous. He signals for Bonner to keep calm and remain in control, but deep down, he knows that whatever is out there, it's about to become a threat that could change everything. Suddenly, the doors to the room slide open with a loud hiss. A voice, deep and robotic, echoes from the hallway. "This is the final warning. All non-combatants are to evacuate immediately. All military personnel are to prepare for engagement." The voice is chilling, calm and devoid of any emotion. The humans and Teliari stare at the doorway, but no one moves. Then, out of the shadows, a figure steps forward. It's not a Teliari. It's a robot, a sleek, black war machine with glowing red eyes that pierce through the darkness. Its movements are swift, precise, like a predator in its prime. The Teliari gasps, horrified, as they recognize the symbol on its chest, the emblem of the Zaran Dominion, a ruthless faction of aliens that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The Teliari had long warned about the threat the Zaran posed, but they had never encountered them on such a close level. Now, they realized that the humans may have unknowingly dragged them into a war they weren't prepared for. Captain Reed's hand instinctively goes to his weapon. He steps forward, putting himself between the Teliari and the approaching robot. "Stay behind me," he orders. His voice is calm, but there's a steely determination in it. He's been in combat before, but this situation is different. The Zaran Dominion is not something to take lightly. The robot's cold, mechanical voice booms again. "Human forces are hereby commanded to surrender. Resistance is futile." The tone is almost mocking, as if daring them to fight back. Reed clenches his jaw. The Teliari diplomats, now fully aware of the threat, huddle together, fear written all over their faces. The young diplomat who had earlier accused the humans of setting a trap now looks horrified as the reality of their situation sinks in. This is what you've brought us into," he accuses, his voice shaking. But Reed stands firm. "We had no idea the Zaran were here. You have to believe me. We're just as much a target as you are." The robot's glowing eyes shift toward Reed. "This does not concern you," it says coldly. "Prepare to be eliminated." The room tenses as the robot steps closer, its footfalls heavy and deliberate. The humans and Teliari exchange glances, realizing that the peaceful meeting they had hoped for is long over. Now, they must face the Zaran, a ruthless enemy that doesn't care about their differences. As Reed prepares to engage, Bonner's voice cuts through the tension. "We can't fight them here. We need to get out of the base, fast. The Teliari need to be evacuated first." He turns to the Teliari diplomats, his expression grim. "Trust us. We'll get you out of here." The air is thick with fear and uncertainty, and the tension in the room is unbearable. The fate of both Earth and the Teliari hangs in the balance. This is no longer a simple misunderstanding. The Zaran Dominion has arrived, and their plan to conquer the galaxy is now at risk of colliding with humanity's survival instincts. A battle is coming, and it will test the resolve of everyone in the room. The Zarin robot takes another slow step forward, its red eyes glowing menacingly. The room feels colder as the metallic giant looms over them, its presence a stark reminder of the danger they face. Captain Daniel Reed stands firm, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. He can feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him, but he knows that giving in to fear isn't an option. The Teliari diplomats, wide-eyed with terror, huddle together behind him, their earlier distrust of humanity now replaced with a desperate hope that they can rely on the humans for protection. "We can't just sit here and wait to be killed," Reed mutters to himself, eyes locked on the robot. The words are barely audible, but Bonner hears them. The young lieutenant's expression hardens as he scans the room, looking for any advantage they can use. "Captain, we need to get the Teliari to safety," Bonner says, his voice low but urgent. "The longer we stay here, the more likely it is that reinforcements will come." Reed nods grimly. He knows Bonner is right, but the immediate threat is the robot. They don't have much time before the Zarin make their move. Reed steps forward, hand on his weapon, and addresses the Teliari. "You need to move quickly. Follow us and stay close. We'll get you to a safe location," he says in a calm, reassuring voice. The Teliari hesitate for a moment, fear still clouding their faces, but they trust Reed. With no better option, they follow his lead, each one moving as quickly as their shaky legs will carry them. Just as the first Teliari diplomat steps toward the door, the robot speaks again. "Your resistance is futile. You will be destroyed." The calmness of its voice only makes the threat more terrifying. The words seem to freeze the air, but Reed is already in motion. With one swift movement, he pulls out his sidearm and aims it at the robot. The sound of gunfire fills the room as he fires, but the shots bounce off the robot's armor, doing nothing more than sparking off its sleek exterior. Bonner quickly follows suit, drawing his own weapon and firing as well, but it's clear that their bullets are useless. The robot advances, its mechanical limbs moving with terrifying precision. It raises one massive arm, preparing to strike. The tension in the room escalates, and Reed knows that they need a plan, and fast. "We need to hit it where it's weak," Reed shouts, his mind racing. He glances around the room, searching for anything that could give them the edge. His eyes land on a nearby maintenance terminal, and an idea forms in his mind. It's risky, but it's the only chance they have. Bonner looks at Reed, understanding the unspoken plan. "Got it, Captain." With no time to waste, Reed signals for the Teliari to hurry, his voice firm but desperate. "Move, now." The Teliari diplomats rush through the door, but the robot isn't far behind, its heavy footsteps shaking the ground. It's not just an unstoppable killing machine, it's intelligent, calculating, and seems to enjoy every second of the chase. As the last of the Teliari ducks out of the room, Reed and Bonner sprint toward the maintenance terminal. They quickly access the control panel, fingers flying over the keys. The robot continues its slow, methodical advance, but Reed knows that the clock is ticking. Every second they waste brings them closer to their own destruction. Finally, Bonner finds what they need, a control override. It's a long shot, but it might just work. "I've got it," he calls out, flipping a switch. A loud hum fills the air as the terminal powers up. "Get ready," Reed warns. The robot takes another step, its massive shadow looming over them. Bonner presses a few more keys, and suddenly, the entire room lights up with a burst of energy. The maintenance terminal whirs to life, and a powerful electric surge flows through the wiring. The robot freezes for a split second as the surge disrupts its systems. Reed doesn't waste the opportunity. He pulls out a small EMP grenade from his belt, a weapon specifically designed to disable electronics. With a quick toss, he hurls the grenade straight toward the robot's exposed power core. The grenade lands with a soft thud and then detonates with a blinding flash of light. For a moment, the entire room is filled with an intense, almost deafening silence. The Zarin robot stumbles, its red eyes flickering erratically. Sparks fly from its body as it struggles to remain upright. The EMP has done its job, the robot systems are temporarily disabled. This is their chance. Now! Reed shouts, rushing forward with Bonner right behind him. They charge at the robot, ducking under its flailing limbs. With teamwork and precise moves, they disable the robot's arms, knocking out its ability to fight back. It's not an easy task, and every moment is filled with danger, but the humans fight with everything they have. As the final blow is dealt, the robot's glowing eyes flicker one last time before going dark. It falls to the floor with a deafening crash, its massive body crumpling into a heap. For a moment, all is still. Reed stands over the fallen robot, breathing heavily, his heart pounding in his chest. "We did it," he says, his voice steady but filled with exhaustion. Bonner nods, a small grin forming on his face. For now, at least. The Teliari emerge from their hiding places, their faces filled with awe. They've just witnessed the strength and determination of humanity, and in that moment, their fears of the humans are replaced with a grudging respect. Captain Reed looks at the Teliari, his expression serious. "This is just the beginning. We've defeated one robot, but we're not safe yet. There's more out there, and we need to be ready." The tension that had filled the room moments before begins to fade, but it's replaced by a new kind of urgency. The humans have shown that they are willing to fight to protect the Teliari, but the battle is far from over. They have made their first stand, but the war is just beginning. Now, they must face the full might of the Zarin Dominion, and the outcome is uncertain. But one thing is clear, humanity will not back down. The fight for survival has only just begun, the air is thick with tension as the room falls silent. The defeated robot, now a lifeless heap of metal, lies on the ground. Its glowing red eyes are no more, leaving only the faint hum of emergency lights. Captain Reed stands tall, but his face is a mask of exhaustion and determination. The battle had been hard, but it wasn't over yet. Humanity had won a small victory, but the bigger fight was far from complete. Bonner, his uniform torn and bloodied, breathes heavily beside him. He wipes sweat from his forehead, his eyes focused on the wreckage of the Zarin robot. "We did it," he says, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "We actually did it." But Reed's expression doesn't change. His eyes scan the room, moving from the fallen robot to the Teliari diplomats, and then to his team. He counts them all, a habit that has become second nature. Everyone is accounted for, except for one. Lieutenant Bonner notices it too. His heart sinks as he looks at Reed. "Where's Sergeant Harris?" he asks, his voice strained with worry. He knows that Harris was fighting right beside them, but now, the absence is impossible to ignore. Reed clenches his jaw, fighting the wave of anger and sorrow threatening to consume him. "I don't know," he replies, his voice cold. The pain of losing one of his own is almost too much to bear. Harris had been one of the best soldiers Reed had ever worked with, always quick to act, loyal to the team, and unflinching in the face of danger. To lose him in a battle they had fought so hard to win feels like a betrayal, of Harris, of themselves, and of everything they stand for. The Teliari, who have been watching the humans with awe and gratitude, now look at Reed with sympathy. They understand loss in their own way. In their peaceful world, war and violence are alien concepts, but they can see the pain in the humans' eyes. They had saved them, yes, but at a cost. The Teliari may not have known the name of Sergeant Harris, but they recognize the sacrifice. As the silence grows heavier, a distant voice breaks through, a weak but familiar voice calling from the wreckage of the Zarin robot. "Help, me." The voice is faint but unmistakable. It's Sergeant Harris. Reed's heart skips a beat. Without a word, he rushes toward the source of the voice, Bonner close behind him. They move quickly, pushing past the broken parts of the robot, their eyes scanning the debris for Harris. They find him lying underneath a piece of the robot's metal frame, badly injured but alive. His face is pale, covered in sweat, and his uniform is torn to shreds. His leg is pinned beneath a heavy piece of machinery, and he is struggling to breathe, but his eyes light up when he sees Reed and Bonner. You got it," Harris whispers, a weak smile tugging at his lips. "You took it down." He coughs, his body racked with pain, but the pride in his voice is unmistakable. He had been fighting to the very end, and now, despite the agony, he knows that the mission was a success. Reed crouches beside him, his face full of concern. "Harris, hold on. We're getting you out of here." Bonner rushes to help, but it's clear that Harris's injuries are severe. Reed carefully checks his vital signs, trying to calm the man down. "Don't talk, Harris. Save your strength." But Harris shakes his head weakly. "No. Listen, Captain. It was worth it. You guys, you did it." He tries to sit up, but the pain makes him fall back, gasping for air. Reed can feel the lump in his throat. Harris's determination, his courage, and his unwavering spirit had been a light in the darkest times. To see him like this, fighting for breath, makes Reed question everything. How could they have come so far just to lose someone like Harris? But Harris isn't finished yet. Despite the pain, he grabs Reed's hand with surprising strength. Don't let them win. Finish it. You have to." His words are strained, each one more difficult to say than the last. He smiles weakly, then his hand slips away. In that moment, Reed knows that the battle isn't just for survival anymore. It's for every soldier who has fought and died. It's for people like Harris, whose names will never be written in history books but whose sacrifice will never be forgotten. Tears well in Reed's eyes, but he doesn't let them fall. He straightens up, his voice filled with resolve. "We'll finish this, Harris. For you. For all of us." Bonner nods in agreement. The loss of Harris cuts deep, but it has also ignited something within him. They are fighting not just for their survival but for the memory of the fallen. As Reed and Bonner lift Harris's body with the help of the remaining soldiers, they hear the sound of approaching enemy ships. The war isn't over. The Zeren may have been defeated for now, but they'll be back. But Reed knows one thing for sure, the humans will not give up. They will keep fighting. They will keep winning. And they will honor every sacrifice, every life lost, by finishing what they started. The humans may have lost one of their own, but their spirit, their will to survive, and their determination to protect those they love burns brighter than ever. The road ahead is uncertain, but as long as they stand together, they know they can face whatever the galaxy throws at them. They won't stop. Not now. Not ever. The war had not only changed the galaxy but also changed the humans who had fought in it. The Teliari, now safe from the Zeren's terror, had witnessed the unbreakable spirit of the human race. They had seen how the humans fought for each other, how they sacrificed everything for the greater good. Captain Reed stood at the edge of the battlefield, looking at the wreckage of the Zeren ships that lay scattered across the planet's surface. The war wasn't over, but this victory, this hard-won battle, meant something. It meant that humans were no longer seen as just another species in the galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the entire galaxy would now know their name. Beside him stood Lieutenant Bonner, who had become more than just a comrade, he was a friend, a brother in arms. Bonner's face was tired, his body bruised and battered, but there was a light in his eyes, a fierce determination that hadn't faded. "We did it," Bonner said, his voice low but filled with pride. Reed nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the desolate landscape. It had been a long, grueling battle. So many had fallen. Harris, their brave and fearless soldier, was gone. His death weighed heavy on Reed's heart, but it also fueled the fire within him. Harris's last words would never be forgotten. They had to finish what they started. And they would. "We did," Reed said quietly, his voice steady despite the sorrow in his chest. "But this is just the beginning. The Zeren may have lost today, but the war is far from over. They'll be back, and they'll come with everything they have." Bonner clenched his fists, a spark of anger lighting in his eyes. "Let them come," he said, his voice sharp. "We'll be ready." Reed turned to look at the Teliari diplomats, who had watched the humans' victory with admiration and respect. The Teliari were a peaceful species, their society built on harmony and cooperation, but they had learned something in the past few days. They had learned the true strength of humanity. And now, they would offer their help, their advanced technology, and their knowledge of the galaxy to the humans. One of the Teliari diplomats, an elder named Lauren, stepped forward, his face full of gratitude. "Captain Reed, you have saved us. You and your soldiers have given us hope in a time of despair. We owe you our lives." Reed gave a nod, his expression serious. "We're not done yet. We've made a stand, but the Zeren and their allies won't stop. They'll keep coming. And we'll need all the help we can get to protect our people, our homes." Lauren's eyes gleamed with understanding. "We will stand with you. The Teliari will provide you with everything we have. Our fleets, our technology, our knowledge. Together, we will defeat the Zeren once and for all." As the humans and the Teliari began to work together, sharing their resources and strategies, Reed couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. They had faced impossible odds, but they had overcome them. They had won. And now, with the support of the Teliari, they were ready for whatever the future held. The next few weeks were a blur of training, strategy meetings, and gathering supplies. The humans had never been more prepared. Their technology, although still in its infancy compared to the Teliari, was advancing rapidly. The cloaking devices they had taken from the Zeren ships were now being reverse-engineered, and new weapons were being developed to give them an edge in the coming war. But it wasn't just technology that gave them an advantage, it was their determination. The human spirit had been tested, and it had not broken. The loss of Harris, though painful, had only strengthened their resolve. They were a family, and they would fight for each other until the very end. The final battle was looming. The Teliari had discovered that the Zeren were assembling a fleet larger than anything they had seen before. It would be a battle like no other, one that would determine the fate of countless worlds. But Reed was ready. The humans were ready. And, with the Teliari by their side, they were stronger than ever before. As the final preparations were made, Reed stood once again on the battlefield, looking up at the sky. The stars seemed brighter than ever before. The darkness of the war was still there, but for the first time, he saw a glimmer of light. A promise that no matter what happened, humanity would not go down without a fight. "We're not just fighting for survival," Reed whispered to himself. "We're fighting for the future. For everyone who can't fight for themselves." Bonner walked up beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "And we'll win, Captain. Together, we'll win." The battle ahead would be difficult, but Reed knew one thing for certain. Humanity had proved its strength. They had shown the galaxy that, no matter how impossible the odds, no matter how powerful the enemy, humans would always rise. And they would fight to protect the ones they loved, no matter what. The Zeren had underestimated them. Now, it was time to show them what humanity was truly capable of. The fight was just beginning, but Reed knew they would face it together, stronger than ever before.